Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Russell Pope. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering at Kovarus. We're a reseller that services the Denver area as well as the Bay Area and Seattle. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about Puppet Enterprise and how we integrate it for some of our customers with vRealize automation. So just to kind of give you an idea of how we approach the world today, businesses are being disrupted through software. Like software is becoming the driving force behind how businesses generate revenue today. And what this does is it ends up creating a challenge for businesses to go back to their developers and say, hey, guys, I need you to do this stuff more often, more frequently, and I need you to be really reliable. And oh, by the way, you're not getting any headcount. This has the added impact of going to the operations teams, and the developers are saying, hey, I need infrastructure faster than you're traditionally used to giving it to me. And so you kind of get this problem that builds on itself and builds on itself, and developers aren't happy, the business isn't happy, and the operations guys aren't happy. So what I'm going to do today is kind of talk about how we address that with our customers using Puppet and vRealize automation. So before we get into some practical stuff, I'd like to tell you guys a little bit about what is vRealize automation, how does it work, what are some benefits of it, and a couple of challenges we've seen in the field. And then we'll go into a little bit about what Puppet is and how it works and what that brings to the game. And then we're going to go through some practical integration stuff. So we'll actually see some of the workflows we've built, some of the code we've written, and how we would typically deploy this in a customer scenario. And then last but not least, we'll be doing a short video to showcase the solution in action. So to get started, vRealize automation. vRealize automation is a cloud management platform provided by VMware. It gives you a self-service portal. It abstracts all the APIs for your underlying infrastructure into its own API. It provides you the ability to wrap policy and governance around infrastructure, applications, or pretty much anything that you can connect to vRealize automation. This includes things like Active Directory OUs, integrating in with storage arrays, Viper, what have you. There's a piece of vRealize automation that's really important for this integration. It's called the event broker. The event broker is the glue that binds vRealize automation to another product that VMware offers called vRealize Orchestrator, which all of you have if you have a VMware license. An orchestrator is a tool that we use for reaching out to external systems and making changes or collecting data or giving us custom dropdowns, et cetera. So vRealize automation at a high level, it basically gives the cloud administrator the ability to build a catalog of services and blueprints that include all your security policies, your governance, resources that they're allowed to consume, et cetera. And it can be custom depending on who it is that's placing the order. For example, developers, they want resources as fast as possible with as little friction as possible. So we might decide for those guys, their services are request, build, destroy, and maybe we'll put a lease on those guys. Hey, you can have anything you want as long as you want it, as long as it's less than 30 days. Production guys, though, might have a different perspective. They may need to have an approval process because this thing's going to stick around longer, which means it's going to cost more money. And maybe they have a different set of resources that they need to use. And if we do retire a machine, we may need to archive that. So we can add additional steps to the provisioning workflow so that production can meet those needs. And then, of course, you might have like desktops or some other business group that has different requirements. For example, you might have, like marketing may want to have request, no approval, but I want to archive this for this because I'm using this software for ad campaigns and I want to be able to go back to it for whatever reason. The heart and soul of vRealize automation is the service catalog. This is a self-service portal. As you can see, it gives you a lot of options here. Everything that you can do in vRealize automation is surfaced up through this interface. So if it's creating an OU, an Active Directory, or provisioning a user, or building a server, and then depending on what I click on in the service catalog, I can give you a form that has different fields, drop-downs, radio buttons, values, et cetera, that you can use to influence the behavior of the things that you're provisioning. Behind that service catalog is the blueprint canvas. So this is where the cloud administrator will compose the different services that he's offering to his end users. So for example, we can drag and drop elements in here, whether they're virtual machines or VRO workflows. In our case, we're going to be doing Puppet modules and things like that. And we can compose these services in a nice visual fashion and then publish them out. And we can include everything we want in here. Like I say, we can bring in orchestrator workflows, we can bring in NSX stuff, we can bring in third-party stuff. And one of the things we'll be doing a lot with today is the application services agent, which is new in VRA 7 and is also available in 7.1. And then, of course, if you're using vRealize Business with vRealize automation, because you're driving all your provisioning to a centralized location, we can actually act as a broker for all your IT services. What that means, for example, is we could do cost comparisons between workloads, whether they're running on-prem or off-prem, and like Amazon or something, and say, well, you know what? This particular workload, it's best I provision this in-house, but this other workload, it's best I build that in Amazon. So some challenges we ran into with customers, a lot of it ends up being template sprawl. I need a Tomcat template. I need a Apache template. I need a RabbitMQ, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Well, this is great until the security guy comes in and says, hey, we're putting PowerBroker on all of our Linux machines. Now I got to break out a dozen templates and make that change. I'd rather do it with Puppet. So for all of our customers who are using Puppet with vRealize automation, we typically have one template for every operating system they need to support. And we build modules to define the behavior of those templates. So the CentOS base template, which is basically a minimal install of CentOS, we could say, hey, I want to apply an Apache role on it. So when I build this thing, it's going to turn it into an Apache server. Oh, by the way, the IP tables rules must be configured as such. SSHD must be configured as such. I need to install these optional packages. I need you to go install PowerBroker, integrate it with AD. Whatever your requirements are, we codify these in Puppet, and then we apply them at provisioning time. So let's go over a little bit about Puppet Enterprise. So Puppet Enterprise is kind of your one throat to choke for all change in your enterprise. So whether it's security or just configuration or compliance or whatever, all that stuff gets codified in your Puppet Master. And then your Puppet Master is responsible for orchestrating those changes and deploying them out to your systems. And what this means is, like, even if you want to make like a really basic change, you just change it in your Puppet Master. And then, for example, your Puppet Master will go out and say, oh, well, that change applies to these 100 servers over here. So I'm going to go change those 100 servers over here, versus you having to log in, edit config files, or do whatever it is that typically happens. It also has a nice impact on your change control policy, where when you're reviewing the change and you're looking at a Word doc with steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the backout plan is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which I've never seen work. And if any of you say you have seen it work, I disbelieve you. And so we can actually just roll back to the previous version of that configuration, though. So that's your backout plan. So your change control review is, let's look at this Puppet module, and let's look at the parameters we're changing, X to Y. Everybody can look at that and agree right away, yeah, that's the right change. And if it breaks something, then we just roll back to the previous config, go do a root cause analysis, and then come back in later and say, oh, that actually needs to be Z, not Y. It also provides you centralized reporting. So all your changes come through Puppet, which means I have one place to go to see what's happening in my infrastructure. It also deals with remediation. So if somebody changes something out of compliance, Puppet's just going to fix it. It'll let you know that it fixed it, but it's just going to fix it. It's not going to send out an alarm and say, you need to go fix this because it's not complying with the state. There's Puppet agents for just about every platform that's going to be in your data center today. That includes like Linux, Windows, AIX systems, even hardware, like Nexus 9K, F5, et cetera. You can also drive it with a self-service portal, which we're doing here. So one place where we've seen some success with Puppet is in the element of security. So security guys, they might say, you know what, this box needs to be stigged, or I need SE Linux on, I need IP tables on, I need the SSH keys on, et cetera. So you define that desired state in Puppet. Puppet goes out and makes it so. And if anybody changes something, you'll have a record of that change inside a Puppet, which means when your security guy says, hey, the auditor's on site, and he wants to know who turned off the firewall on all those Linux servers, you can say, that guy did. And you can go throw coffee in his lap. You can also do phased deployments with Puppet, and this is actually a relatively new feature. So if you have 100 web servers and you need to make a change, you could say, I'm going to pick these 10 and use them as my canary in the coal mine. And assuming the canary is still alive at the end of the change, you can then roll that out to the rest of your servers. That can make change windows a lot less stressful. And you can still tell people, hey, it takes an hour to make this change, even though it takes like 5 minutes, and then you go and have some beer and send an email out at the end of the hour and tell them the change is done. We also have the ability to observe changes as they're happening in real time. So you can say, hey, wait, you know what? That's not giving me the behavior I expected. Let me stop that. Let me interject. Let me go back and roll that back and make some different changes. We can also model applications. And this is probably one of the more interesting features of Puppet, is being able to take a given application that includes its database servers, its app servers, its web servers, its message queues, et cetera, and codifying that in Puppet. So whenever we need to make a change, Puppet's aware of all the interdependencies, and it can make those changes in a nice staged fashion versus just kind of blasting everything and hoping it works. And we can, like say, we can include configuring your load balancers. So you can define, you can have a Puppet module that goes out and says, hey, for app foo, add these 10 web servers to this VIP. And Puppet will do that for you. And if you need to change app foo, then all you need to do is go and change that Puppet module. We can map dependencies. So for example, if let's say you need SE Linux and you have some application server like our PostgreSQL and you need to install SE Linux modules for that, we can track all that stuff and visualize it in the Puppet interface. And we have good RBAC in there. So you can say, hey, you guys are operations engineers for X, so you can do all these things with Puppet on X. You guys are the operations engineers for Y, so you can deal with these Puppet configuration and on these servers. And like I said before, one place to go for all your visibility. So you don't have to sit there and say, well, let me go tail this log over here and see if somebody's typing commands on it, or let me go look at Power Broker, or let me go look in my Splunk dashboard. I can just go right here to Puppet and see all the changes. And because I have to make all my changes in Puppet, because if I don't make them there, Puppet's going to fix it, you have one place to go and audit it. One thing, I'm a Linuxy guy myself. Puppet does support Windows, has very good Windows support, and so you don't have to just necessarily restrict this to your Linux footprint. And my last note on Puppet is there are thousands of modules that are already out there. So you don't need to necessarily sit down and figure out how to write your own Puppet modules. You can just pick and choose the ones you want out of Puppet Forge, and then you can basically customize the parameters you need. So for example, Java heap size or whatever is important to you, you just define it, and it's going to be a field that you change in an existing module. And some of these are going to be supported by F5. For example, if you have Puppet Enterprise, you can get their F5 module, their Microsoft SQL module. And those are going to be supported, which means if you have trouble with them, you can pick up the phone, call Puppet, and say, hey, I'm trying to get this module to do this, and it's not working for me, and they'll walk you through the process. So how do we tie this stuff together practically? So this is a typical reference architecture for something a lot of our customers will have, and we're going to be focusing on these three elements here: vRealize Automation, Orchestrator, and Puppet Enterprise. And what we're doing with these elements, we're basically using vRealize Automation as our self-service portal. All requests come through here, and we want to be able to define services in vRealize Automation and then have Puppet basically implement those services for us. We're using Orchestrator actually for just one task: a node purge. So if I delete a virtual machine, we remove it out of the Puppet master so that we don't keep tracking that node. And of course, Puppet Enterprise, our workhorse. So just a quick level set on what some of these things mean. A Puppet node is basically a managed endpoint. It's a server, it's a VM, it's a switch, or whatever that a Puppet agent is managing the configurations for. Now, facts are kind of the backbone of how we're doing this integration. Facts are just metadata about those machines. It's basically facts. How many CPUs does it have? How much memory does it have? What are the attached disks? And we're going to be using something called node classification based on those facts to define the roles that we assign to our virtual machines as we provision them. So here we are in Puppet building a node classification rule. So we're starting something basic, Apache. So we have kpse.-apache. And all we're doing is we're saying, let's look for this fact, kpse role. And if it equals Apache, then it belongs in this group. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And then, as an aside, anything that's in this group, I want you to apply this Apache class to it. So that's the modules that Puppet uses to configure Apache and install Apache. And we want to assign this role base. Now in our environment, role base integrates the box with Active Directory. It sets up my NTP servers, my syslog servers, all the stuff that I typically use to manage a machine in my environment. So if I need a monitoring agent, backup agent, or whatever, we push all that stuff out with base. Now one of the great things with Puppet is, even though I'm using a minimal install, it's actually going to sort out all the interdependencies and dependencies for me. So I don't need to worry about putting these in any particular order. I don't need to log into the box later and pre-stage some stuff. It'll just sort all that stuff out for me and then deploy it. From vRealize Automation, we're actually not doing a whole lot. We're basically taking a shrink wrap off some tools and we're taking it to town. So we're using Application Services Agent, which, if you're familiar with vRealize Automation, this is when they merged AppD in with the core product. So this gives us a nice fancy agent with the lifecycle actions that we can plug into. And we're actually going to use App Services to build a list of those Puppet classes and roles that we're going to actually plug into our virtual machines. And so And I'll actually show you what this looks like in a live demo, but for example, we're going to create a software package, and really the crux of it is this stuff right here, which I'm sorry you can't read very well because it's a little blurry, but the slides should be available later and it's clear on your screen. But basically all we're doing is getting the Puppet agent, and then we're running it. And then that bootstraps it into the Puppet master, and then it takes over from there. The next piece, and this is the simplest piece of all, we're actually just catting some data into a file on the file system that Puppet knows to read to get custom facts. So we're defining a fact, kpsc.roll, and we're saying the value of that fact is Apache. So now you can see where when we build our virtual machine, and App Services installs Puppet and then puts some text in a file, when the Puppet agent runs, it's going to read that fact out, and it's going to say, oh, he belongs in the KPSC Apache group. What does the KPSC Apache group do? It puts the base role on it, and then it installs Apache. For defining the blueprint, we're basically going to drag and drop some elements in. So I'm going to need a network to connect to, which is this VLAN 12 here. I'm going to need a Linux box or a Windows box. And I got my Puppet agent installed, so I drag and drop that guy in. And then I drag and drop the role that I want on top of that. And then I can publish this guy and then present it out as a service, and now somebody can order that and get an Apache box every time. And this is a pretty simplistic example, but you can actually take, you can create a lot of custom facts to define the behavior of how Puppet's going to do something. So you could say, for example, based on your business group or who you are, or like the type of service it is, you could take this stuff and you can drive the behavior of Puppet and make it behave in different ways. For example, you could say, oh, you know what, a developer's ordering this, so I'm going to go ahead and let IP tables be off, but oh, when a production guy orders this, IP tables must be on. And then for Orchestrator, this is the one workflow that we need. It's a very basic workflow. I'll show you the code in it. We're basically saying, whenever we decommission a machine, get the name of the machine, and then go tell Puppet to dump that machine out of its database. So here's some code to get the name of the machine. So we're accessing a VCAC custom property or VRA custom property. And we're saying, get me the DNS suffix. So for example, kovarus.com or whatever. And then that's the node name. And we feed that into this step where we normalize it to lowercase. And then we use the Puppet module plugin to purge the node. So anytime a virtual machine dies, we send a notice to the event broker, and this workflow runs and then purges it from the Puppet master database. So we don't have to worry about having thousands of machines in there that don't exist anymore. Basically, as vRealize says it's time for this machine to expire, or if an admin deletes that virtual machine, we remove it from the Puppet master. So what I'll do now is actually, hopefully, play a video for you. I would do a live demo, but my internet isn't behaving today. So. And I'll kind of talk through it. I just want to full screen this guy, hopefully not regret it. So here I am logging into vRealize Automation. And this is happening over VPN when I recorded this, so it's going to be kind of pokey, and I apologize for that. Here's the dashboard where we can see all kinds of interesting information, nodes that are about to blow up, requests that are done. But I want to go right into the catalog. And we won't spend too much time in here. We're basically just showing you the different classifications of services we have. We have a lot. We do a lot of our development stuff in here for our customers. And what we're actually going to do now is we're going to design something. And we're going to start by building our software component and show you how we actually built those things that I showed you in the PowerPoint. So I'm going to go here to Software Components. And I'm going to click, actually I'm just going to grab an existing one here. So I'm going to grab this Puppet agent, install. And you'll see when this thing comes up, I'm just going to go straight to actions, but I can have properties if I want to configure that. And I'm just worried about the install action. But you can do other stuff as well. And this is just a bash script whose sole purpose in life is to go and get the Puppet agent and install it on the box. And it gets it from the Puppet master, so he knows what Puppet master to plug into. And then I want to go and define my role. So I'm going to come down here eventually to this web server role. And you'll see here where that really basic script happens to be in place, which is, like I say, super, super simple. Make a directory, make sure it exists, and then push this fact into that text file. Once that's done, I can actually go build my blueprint. So I'm going to go new blueprint, hello vForum. And then I need to go turn a couple of knobs over here for NSX so that it doesn't throw a hissy fit at me. And now we're going to be in the blueprint canvas. And so now what I need to do is, what am I building? Well, I'm going to build a Linux box, and I'm going to put Apache on it. So I'm going to drag and drop this vSphere machine into my blueprint canvas. and there it goes. And I need to populate a few fields, and this is stuff that the cloud administrator would typically do. You don't necessarily have to do this as the end user. I'm building the service for somebody to actually consume. So I want to take and I want to clone this from an existing template. So I'm going to go pick, and I have a lot of templates in there for a lot of different science experiments, but I'm just going to pick my minimal install, which is this guy right here. And all he's got on it is a CentOS minimal install, VMware tools, and the guest agent, or the app services agent. We're not going to tweak with the virtual machine resources, but I am going to have to bring in a network so that we can actually talk to the Puppet master. Unfortunately, Puppet does require network connectivity to work, but then what doesn't? So I'm going to drag in an existing network that I have, and there's going to be a network profile behind it that's going to manage all the IPs, DNS, et cetera. So I'm going to pick VLAN 12, it looks like. And then I'm going to go add a NIC to my server. And we're going to put that on VLAN 12, hit OK. So now I want to actually make this guy a Puppet client. So I'm going to drag in my Puppet agent install. And then I'm going to go grab my web server role. And I actually created a dependency here so that I have to have that Puppet agent on there before I can drag the web server in there. So I'm actually dragging that inside there. So that way you can't just drag the Puppet web server role in there without there being an agent. Otherwise, it wouldn't do anything. I'm going to publish this service out, and then I'm going to go request it. So we're going to go publish it. We're going to go catalog management services, add it to my sandbox. Click on catalog items. There we go. If there's a VMware product manager in here, please put a better search field in here. So I'm going to go put it in my sandbox, and you know what? I'm going to check the new and noteworthy box just because, so that way when Dana back there sees it, he'll know he can order it. And there's a hello vForm. There's my service. I'm going to request it, which is going to bring up the form. And this is a pretty basic form. I'm not actually capturing a whole lot of data here, but you could capture any data you want to drive this behavior of this request. But you can see that I've got my Puppet agent installed and that there's a dependency here for the web server role. I'm going to build 3 of these guys, give it a description so that I can quickly identify it in my items dashboard. So request has been submitted successfully. So now we're going to go to our request tab, and we're going to track it. I'm going to do a little bit of an Emeril Lagasse thing here where I'm actually going to pull another pot roast out of a different oven that's already cooked because I didn't feel like waiting for the 2.5 minutes it takes to actually build the virtual machine because I only have 7 minutes and 20 seconds left. But we can actually track through here, so we can actually see all the different state. And so you'll see me go up there and woo, magic. And then one of the things that I like about using the guest agent or the app services agent is I can actually pull logs about everything that happened. So I can make sure that it did the thing that I expected it to do, and if something went wrong, I can actually see why. In vRealize 6.2, this was a little painful because you kind of had to go sneak in and then hopefully get to the log before VRA said, oh, I didn't do the thing I wanted to do, so I'm going to blow up this virtual machine. Too bad if you want to troubleshoot it. So here we are. We've got our 3 machines that we built. So I can see it's associated with VLAN 12. I got my Puppet agent, 0386. So I'm going to go to my Puppet master now. I'm going to look at my inventory, and then you're going to see there's a 0386. And if we go to classes, we're actually going to see, oh, look at that. It's got Apache on it. And it's because of that KPSC Apache. And that was all done because of the fact that we have that rule that captures that information. And of course, when I go back into the box, these are the facts that we've collected. This is all information about what this machine is. So for example, here's that custom fact that I basically stuck into a text file, and it's Apache. And my rule is keying off of that to determine what to do with this system. And of course, I can actually go to my inventory, and you can see here, these green dots are things that haven't been changed, and these half blue dots are things that have changed during the last scheduled Puppet run. And of course, I can pull this guy open. I'm going to actually grab his IP address, and then I'm going to log into the box and show you some stuff on it. So I'm going to SSH in, and then I type the bad password here, so we're going to have to see me log in twice. I probably could have edited that out, but then it's less fun. And pay no attention to the black boxes that are about to pop up there. I forgot to close Outlook. So here we are. We've got our fancy message of the day, Kovarus Inc. Here's my IP. I see that NTP is on the box. I'm actually going to say, hey, did you guys install Apache? Yes, you did, HTTPD. That's what Red Hat uses for its Apache server. Other distros will call it something different. I'm going to edit my ntp.conf. This is one of the cool things about Puppet. So I'm going to do something that a rogue sysadmin would do. I'm going to delete a server. I'm going to add my own server. And then I'm actually going to type a bunch of garbage on one of these lines. Just bleh. So that way, and you can see that Puppet's going to recognize that that's not OK, and it's going to blow that stuff out of there. So when Puppet comes back around to run, and I'm actually forcing a run on the box itself, it's going to look at the state of the system and the files it's supposed to watch, and he's going to say, oh, hey, by the way, here are some things that I see that are wrong. So you can see here, he's like, oh, I see the ntp.conf file doesn't look like what I think it should look like. Let's blow out this line here. Let's add this line back in its place. Let's blow out this garbage server line and add this line back in its place. And I can rerun that 10,000 times, and it'll give me the same result. If I delete the file, it'll create it. If I remove NTP, it'll reinstall it. Basically, Puppet is kind of like that super effective security guard that's going to make sure that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing. We have what we call the Kovarus Proven Solution Center, KPSC. This is basically where we do a lot of our demos for our customers. And we can sit and work with you guys in a workshop, talk about what your business challenges are, where you think Puppet fits, and a little bit about what infrastructure you need to automate. And we can actually build you a custom demo to meet your needs to see this stuff in context. So if you come to me and you say, oh, I'm using Puppet and Splunk and vRealize, how do I bring this stuff together? And oh, by the way, I'm managing IIS and SQL, et cetera. We can construct a demo and do like a one-day workshop with you guys where you can get your hands on the technology, play with it, hands on the keyboard, all that kind of stuff. For more info, contact Matt Schuster at kovarus.com. He is our local manager here. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate your time.